Good afternoon, this is Jerry Alt again, bringing you another in a series of Photoshop tutorials. Today what we're going to do is talk about photographing smoke and then how to create interesting patterns. You can see here on the screen, if I can get it to come up. There we go. This is a finished image that I did. It's a pretty simple image actually, taken using an incense stick to create the smoke pattern. But what I'm going to do here in a few minutes is show you how you can add some real character to it. Here's another one that I did during the same session. So we're going to work on this image here. Now, to shoot this, I put my camera on a tripod, in my case a camera stand in my studio. I put the incense burner in front of a black background. Here I was using a Westcott, it's kind of a velour material, Westcott pure black, 9 by, I think they make 9 by 10 and 9 by 20 drops, and I use them quite a bit when I'm trying to cut out people from a background in my studio. So I've tried this with candle smoke. The problem with a candle is most candles today are what they call dripless. As a result, they don't generate that much smoke. So by using an incense stick, I got a little more organic material that was burning. So my camera settings for this and my setup was, the camera was a 70-200 Sigma art lens. I shot it pretty wide open, probably 70 to 85 millimeter. My ISO was at 200 for this particular shot because I didn't want to blow out the scene with the light from my flash, but I did want to get the character of the smoke to show up pretty good. As you'll see, it's not going to make that much difference because we're really going to bring up these tones in Photoshop in just a moment. I had 1/160th or 1/200th of a second. As long as you stay underneath your sync speed on your camera. If you don't know what sync speed is, take a look at it. It's usually around 1/200th or 1/250th of a second. If you shoot any faster, you're going to create black bars on your photos. But it doesn't matter since we're getting all of our light from the flash unit. Doesn't matter what that speed is. You could shoot at 1/60th. I was on a tripod. It really wouldn't matter because the flash is going to be a lot faster. So ISO was about 200, maybe 250. Shutter speed was, let's call it 1/160th of a second. And the important thing here is I want to make sure there's no ambient light in the shot. So I used f/16. I had two advantages to using f/16. It's a deep enough field of view that I was pretty sure that most of the smoke was going to be in focus. It would be impossible to shoot this by using your auto focus, because by the time the smoke starts to rise and you try to get a reading on it, you've probably lost that particular plume that you're trying to get. So what I suggest is you focus on the end of the burning incense and then raise your camera slightly or widen the zoom so that you can see where the smoke pattern is going to be. My light source was a single Profoto A1 head, no modifier. Set the zoom to about 50 millimeter, about half of the zoom on manual. And then I played with the power until I could see a definite pattern of smoke showing up. Now, if you take a look here in Lightroom and I take the highlights and move them to the right, you can see that I've got a pretty interesting pattern of smoke. This is just the way it was naturally burning, again, because of that organic material in the incense. I got quite a bit of variation once it got going. Now, the problem with using highlights to do this is you see that the taper, the incense, really gets blown out if I do this. So I'm going to put this back where it was, and we're going to do this image directly in Photoshop. We'll have a lot more control over it, and we have to be there anyway. So I've already opened the image. There we go. I'm in Photoshop. I just have a single blank layer, a single background layer. I'm going to create a duplicate of this layer, and I'm going to do that by hitting Command J. You could also drag that first layer down onto the add, down here at the bottom to the add layer. But it's just quick for me to do this. And the reason I do this is I'm going to manipulate this new layer, but I want to come back and salvage the incense with that red color on it. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to my adjustment layers, and I'm going to add a levels adjustment. And what this does, and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it to this layer because I don't want the changes to go all the way through to the underlying layers. And I can do a few things. I can play with the white balance here and bring it up until I see more of the smoke, until I'm happy with what I've got there. The other thing I can do is, if you see these eyedroppers on the left-hand side, the top one is black, the middle one is gray, and the bottom one that's partially filled in is white. What I want to do, I don't want to do this, is click on the whites and blow them out. You see that now I see all the rest of what was going on in the scene, and that's not what I was trying to do. However, I do want the blacks to be a little more black, so I'm going to pick an area just outside here, and I'm going to make that black. Make sure that my background blacks are where they need to be. All right, now I'm going to raise the level of the whites carefully again until I get something like that, so I can see. I still want it to be wispy. I don't want it to be pure white because smoke isn't typically pure white unless you're electing a pope. And then I'm going to leave this. Now, one of the things I did here, if I went too quick for you, I'll go back. There's a button here at the bottom left of the adjustment layer detail box, the properties box. And what I did is I clicked this so that it was clipping these changes only to the layer immediately below. Again, I want that background. And you see here what's happened is, because on this layer, it's now taken all the detail out of my incense. I'm just going to drop down to this layer. I'm going to grab an eraser. I don't want a black brush because if I do that, I'm just going to paint black. What I want to do is eliminate this layer. I'm just at 100%. Actually, I've got it at 79. I can go to 100. Doesn't really matter. I'm just erasing a spot on this layer. Now, some of you might say, well, why didn't you just create a mask? Creating a mask on something is billowy and doesn't have any defined edges like smoke is very difficult anyway. So we're going to try to stay away from that. All right, so now I've recovered my incense in the background. I've got pretty much a nice shape of white, and here's where the magic happens. I'm going to go back to that top level, and I'm going to add a new level, a new layer. When I add that layer, I now want to go to my gradient tool, and that's over here. And with the gradient tool selected, I'm going to go up and grab a color, and I happen to have one that I was playing with, so we'll just use that. But you can pick through any of the ones that are here. You can make your own. The important thing about this is that I'm going to now draw a line in the general direction of the smoke. And you say, well, that's pretty ugly. Yes, it is. Why? Because this layer is solid. It's a normal layer, and it's covering everything below. So what I'm going to do is go up to my blending mode and drop down to color. If I use color, you'll now see that it's only applied to the lighter areas. Well, but then again, now here I've turned my incense yellow. No problem. Just clip this like we did the other one. And here you can click your Option key. It's Option or Command with Windows. And in the space between the two layers, just click that Option key and click it. What that does is now say only apply this gradient to the layer below it. So I have an adjustment layer, and that one doesn't count, so it's going down to this layer 1, and it's applying the color. So as you can see, I've now got a nice gradient of color. Now you can play with that. You can do it the other way around. I can select all of this, and hit delete. So I took the contents. You don't want to delete the layer. I just want to delete the contents. And let's just go find another color, just something really random and weird. And then I can bring that from the other side. And there we go. I've got different rainbow colors going on. So that's pretty much everything to make that layer. Now you probably want to go back again to that layer 1. You don't want to use an erase brush now, because what I want to do is clean up some of these areas. So I'm going to paint with black. I've already ensured that I have black. I'm going to use the Option key to sample black, and then just go up and clean up some of these little wispies that don't really add to what you're doing. A little bit of smoke there. What happened is the flash picked up some random smoke because I took this shot while this was burning, so that obviously over the course of the several minutes there was other smoke trails that were going off in all kind of different directions. I was waiting for a moment when something interesting happened. So that's it, everybody. That's as simple as it is. Now you can go back in and crop that in Lightroom, add a little clarity to it. If you don't think it's bright enough, you can bring up the brightness just a touch, but remember, when you bring up the brightness, it's going to affect that incense stick as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below the video. I'd love it if you enjoyed this content to click the like button, and certainly if you would be so kind as to subscribe, you'll be advised of any future tutorials that I post. Have a great day.